nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Johnny, would you lead us in prayer?
Let us bow for prayer. Father, we're most grateful for this beautiful, sunshiny day that you've given us, for the life-giving rain we had yesterday. We're thankful for all the blessings you pour out upon us in this club, in this nation, and throughout the world, because all people are your people. We're thankful for our club service, for those that will bring the program today. We ask that you bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies to your service. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, today is Nelson's birthday, and so before he leads us in song,
it's already over. It's already, and I've even become accustomed to being that age and stage.
But I would suggest we sing Happy Birthday to Nelson first. So.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Nelson. Happy birthday to you.
And now you know what we have songs.
And many more.
You notice we didn't add that at the end.
Nelson, if you want to lead us in song.
Yes, I do. And since we have the new president of Lyon College here, Dr. King, Joey King, it's hard for me to call the president of Lyon College by the name Joey. I got used to Don, but but anyway, let's sing For He's a Jolly Good Fellow. For
He's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, that nobody can deny.
Well, welcome everybody to our regular meeting. I hope everyone enjoyed last week not having a meeting. We did have a board meeting. Remember, a week from tomorrow, next Tuesday, is our World Polio Day event. So from 6 to 8 p.m., we will be having a joint event with the Quad Cities Rotary Club at the Ray Rogers Center at the White River Medical Center in their conference room. Please plan to attend. We'll have a silent auction going. Thank you, Aaron Green, Dale Cole, Johnny Kent, and Jared for donating items for that silent auction. And Jared's looking kind of confused, so somebody told me you did, so Jared.
They really appreciate it.
We're also it's great. We're also selling pork butts. And Matt, do you want to say anything about the pork butt sales?
Yeah. I just counted how many we sold. We sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 to 80. If you've got tickets and you've taken up money, please turn it in to me. Tomorrow is the deadline. We've got to place the order Wednesday morning, so really need everybody that's going to sell tickets to go ahead and sell them and give me the head count for tomorrow. I've got a sign-up sheet that I'm going to be passing around. There's three different time periods I need help with. Thursday night, about 6 o'clock, we're going to smoke all of the meat at my house, which is on 1670 Jennings. It's at the top of the Baja from the high school. We're going to have a couple smokers out there, and we're going to put the meat on. The meat should arrive between 5 and 6 on Thursday, so 6 o'clock I need at least 5 or 6 people to help me basically get the meat on. And likewise, pull the meat off Friday morning. I've got that scheduled for 8 a.m. So if I can get another 5 or 6 people to help me pull the meat off, and let's bag it up and get it ready to distribute. And then I'm going to need another group on Friday afternoon from 3 to 7. We're going to be distributing these pork butts at Centennial Bank's parking lot at the old Walmart, or Hobby Lobby now, I guess, as everybody knows. So anyway, action-packed event. Right now we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 to 80 sold. So we still have tickets to sell. So if anybody has an interest in either buying a pork butt or is still interested in selling pork butts, I still have a few tickets. And again, I need those turned in by no later than tomorrow.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Mark House, for doing that. I think Jared, maybe you said you'd help with that too. So thank you guys for your work on that. A portion of the proceeds from the sale will go to the Polio Plus Fund, so that's also excellent. This month is Prescription Drug Take Back Month. We'll have the sheriff come to speak with us 2 weeks from today, but please remember that, and if you see people and publicize that. I think we have some banners we put up around town, but that's something we are recognizing. And November is, we'll do our dictionary project, so keep that in mind too. Ron, do you have a Sergeant at Arms report?
Nothing today.
Nothing today, all right.
Let everybody slide again on their Rotary friends.
Okay, everybody gets to know your Rotary friend forever. And Leisha, our newest member, is filling in for Amanda today. Isn't that just wonderful? Yeah, whoa, that's good for you, right? Do you want to give us the Secretary's report?
I have no idea what it is.
Okay. How many Rotarians do we have here today?
25
Great.
is what I think
Good.
we have.
Good, and I think we have some guests too, so let's go around the room. And Kurt, you have a guest with you?
I do. I have Tommy Maloney here with me. He's a freshman honors student at Lyon College, and I found out recently he has some experience with Rotary, so I wanted him to stand up and tell you a little bit about that.
I'm Tommy Maloney. I go to Lyon College. I'm a freshman. I was sponsored by my Rotary to go to Rolla, and I made a lot of friends at it. It was a good experience getting to go out and hang out with other people that were involved in Rotary, and it also got me connected with my Rotary. So he told me y'all sponsor about 5 people a year, so I really enjoyed it, and I think it was a great opportunity.
And which club was it sponsored?
The Harrisburg Rotary Club.
Great. See Joseph from the Guards here. Thank you, Joseph. Good to see you. And we have some other guests over here. Is everyone here from Lyon, or?
Yes,
Okay.
I have 2 guests with me. I'm Marquita Williams. She's the Academic Operations Manager for Lyon, or for the Provost. And I have Scarlett Barnes, and she's the Admissions Counselor at Lyon.
Great. Did I miss anybody? That's everyone? All of our guests? Okay, good. District golf tournament's happening today. We didn't have anyone who wanted to go golf on the club's dime, so the board has voted to increase the number of seats we buy at the dinner at the Clinton Presidential Library next year, early next year, so that's what we'll do instead. So we continue to give money to the district. Dwight, you have a treasurer's report for us?
No, just be looking for an invoice soon.
Okay. Where the finances are in good shape, I take it, yeah?
Well, don't go too crazy on spending money.
Okay. All right. I don't see Deanna here, but I've talked about her service project. I think we had a good turnout at the Help and Hope Night, and we'll do that again next month. Brenda, thanks for being our door greeter today.
Oh, I did a good job. Best ever.
Yeah, and Mike, I
Next
think
time.
you're up next week.
Gotcha.
Are there any other announcements for the good of the club or community? Ron, why don't you come up and introduce our speaker?
I've got kind of a lengthy bio as such, but you notice it's a little highlighting in there, so I think I'll just do a little highlighting on our speaker today. W. Joseph Joey King is the 18th president of Lyon College. And if you can keep up all these, here's what he has previously done. Senior Advisor to the President, Executive Director, Vice President of Innovation, Executive Director, Co-author, Serial Entrepreneur, I'm not sure about that one, President, Chief Scientist, Entrepreneur in Residence, Research Scientist, Chairman of the Board, Board of Directors, Advisory Board, Advisory Council, Board Member, PhD in Human Computer Interaction, BA with Honors in Computer Science, and this is the one that concerns me the most, especially with this group, BA in Experimental Psychology. So, you know, we better watch out. But anyhow, a lot of history, a lot of good work that he has done. He brings a lot to Lyon College. And let's welcome Dr. King to Rotary.
Hello everybody, I'm happy to be here. I'm going to keep my remarks relatively brief so we have a chance to have some questions. I'm appreciative that you went through my bio. One of the things that you might note is that they consider me a non-traditional candidate, and that's because I deigned to spend one waking moment of my life outside of the academy. But honestly, that wasn't my plan. In fact, I went to graduate school straight out of college with the intention of becoming a faculty member But I happened to be in Seattle going to graduate school in the mid-90s, which was really the greatest technology boom anyone's ever seen. And Seattle was really the epicenter. And so ended up starting a company out of our office at the University of Washington, and 3 years later took that company public on the NASDAQ. So that was a little bit of a course changer, so to speak. But I knew all along that I wanted to come back to the academy, and in 2005, some trustees that I knew at Rice University asked me to come there essentially as an associate provost and help them look at a number of programs that they had started, some very large programs that were struggling with sustainability outside of the Rice umbrella. And this is, kind of in the wake of the 2002-2003 recession. And even in a place like Rice, the money isn't endless. So I went there, and that thus began my migration back into the academy and then ultimately into the liberal arts colleges. So I was very excited about the opportunity at Lyon, although having been an entrepreneur and businessman, I certainly came into it with my eyes wide open. We have a situation at Lyon that's not unusual in the landscape of higher education right now. Namely, we are in a deficit situation. For those of you who aren't reading that code, that means we're losing money. But it is a little bit unusual in that most institutions like Lyon are in that situation because they have what are called structural deficits, which means that they're structured in a way that revenues aren't covering the costs. I don't think that that's the case at Lyon, and that's one of the things that interests me about it. We are really in a different situation, that we are in a revenue driven deficit, in that we have had enrollment management that is fluctuated so wildly. I mean, this is very public information. I don't know. How many enrollment heads have we had, Scarlett, in the last 10 years? A lot.
At least 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, and what that means is there's not been stability and there hasn't been a strategy around enrollment. And when that situation exists, what happens is you fail to capture the revenue that is required to just run the college. But it used to be, in the 1960s, the way you did your budget was you took your budget, you divided by the number of students, and you handed out bills, and that was that. Now it's quite a bit more sophisticated in that you've got to compete with other institutions. You've got to provide a reasonable amount of aid for families who haven't, until this year, seen an increase in median family income since the year 2000. And that's a long, flat line. And in that time, higher education prices, what we call the Higher Education Price Index, the HEPI, it's kind of like the Consumer Price Index for higher education, has gone up each and every year 6 to 8%. So compounded, we're well north of 50% cost increase in a time when families have not been able to afford one extra dollar in spending. So it creates a challenging environment. I think that we have enrollment leadership in place now that is equal to the task. We've essentially brought the VP for Enrollment, Matt Chrisman, with me, and we've recently hired a director of admission who I think is going to be very good. And together we'll craft a strategy to deal with this revenue issue, and ultimately our goal is to grow Lyon College substantially. To be a completely sustainable institution, we need to be at an enrollment of around 975 FTE, full-time equivalent, which is typically, there's a little bit of attrition every spring, either because people graduate or they decide that they want to be in a different place. And so we look at it on a yearly average, and that's where we need to go. And so we're putting in systems and processes to really take us to that point. And I have no doubt we could get there. I have thought that all along. I frankly wouldn't have taken this job if I hadn't known how to solve the financial problems. And I think that we're in a very good position to solve them. One of the things that's unusual about Lyon, and for those of you who are only on campus once every couple of years, you probably don't notice it, But unlike a lot of institutions, we don't have a great deal of deferred maintenance. I was recently this weekend going to an inauguration of a friend of mine, and so I stopped off at a couple of colleges about the size of Lyon. I won't mention their names because I'm not going to tell you how bad they are. But they're in states of disrepair that are almost shocking. One of the ones that I stopped off at, I know the provost there, it's a historic campus, it's on a mountaintop, it's beautiful, and it probably has $50 to $60 million in immediate maintenance needs, which means on these historic buildings, the roofs are covered with tarps because that's the only way they can keep them from leaking. And when you get into that situation and you have revenue problems, you have very few options because you have a place that is not attractive to students. I think Lyon alternately is extremely attractive to students. We have a student here who might be able to speak to that, but in general, I've been on a lot of campuses over the years, and I think that we show very well. I think we'd like to put in some new housing at some point. That's on my radar, and our gym needs a renovation. But if that's the depth of the physical problems, that's pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty good physical plan. And so, we're happy to have our relationship with the school. Using the stadium, I think that's a completely wise way to approach facilities, simply because, if you think about it, how often do you use a football stadium? It's not that much. So I think that we're in a good position, but we need a strategy going forward that's more than just growth. And to do that, I have named a strategic planning task force that is on the job. We started last week. We hired a great strategic planner out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. This is all she's done for 25 years. She's had very big name clients like Johns Hopkins, people you would have heard of. And what I like about her, she's a great planner, but she's also very good at facilitating a conversation and finding the uniqueness of the institution so that strategy embodies the uniqueness. And I think that we will come out of this in the spring with a plan that gets to our growth strategy, but more generally develops a strategy around academic affairs and student life that's compelling, that sets Lyon apart from others. That's really important. If you give me, the name of a college, oftentimes I can tell you what they're known for. Hampden-Sydney, which is probably one of the last men's colleges, but what do they do? Rhetoric. They're known for that. Reed College on the West Coast, social activism. They're known for it. And I think that we need to develop a strategy that the community is bought in on, that is the distinctiveness of Lyon College, so that when people hear Lyon, they're like, oh, they're known for this. And that will help us not only in recruitment and just sort of in national reputation, but also in general. It helps to know who you are. It's hard to be who you are if you don't know who you are. And so we're going through that process this year. Kind of my last comment before we turn it over to Q&A is, one of the things that I'm very deliberate about, and I want my senior staff to be very deliberate about, is outreach to the community. We're a part of Batesville. I really value that connection. I think we have a great community. I think the town is great. I think Independence County and its strategy for the future is unique. And that's something that we need to really play our part in. And I think that there have been administrations in the past who really had no interest in a town or how we relate to the community. And that is something that I want to highlight as far as our going forward is our connection to Batesville and the community and how we play our role in that. So I was happy to get this invitation today. I value organizations like Rotary in general, but I really value the time to have this conversation, to answer your questions, to have a conversation. So with that, I'll turn it over to whatever you might want to ask or comment on, or however you want to do it.
What is the current total enrollment at Lyon?
We are 651 is where we came in. We had a soft enrollment year, which we anticipated, and we have ongoing issues, I think, with retention that we're all aware of. When I talk about enrollment strategies and growth, I'm talking about not only recruitment but also retention. So we're going to be working both ends of that, and you really have to be successful at both, because frankly, if you're successful in recruitment and can't retain, you don't get ahead, and the opposite. And so when we think about enrollment, it really is the whole thing, not just how many kids are coming to the door in the fall.
Are you thinking about staying with the liberal arts format that the college has been on for some time now?
Absolutely. I mean, I have heard, I've been asked that question a lot, and I'm certainly familiar with other institutions that have taken alternate paths with either allied health or, I mean, you can name all sorts of things. I look at it from the standpoint of, we are actually quite good at the liberal arts. We have a great faculty that's committed to that direction. I'm committed to that direction. And I don't think that it's an area where you can't recruit students. I've worked with institutions as a consultant where their strategy for recruiting students at liberal arts college worked great. It's not that we have something that students aren't interested in. We just haven't reached the students for which this is the right environment as much as we want. Ultimately, we have great success in medical school admission, law school admission, graduate school admission, and the reality is, if you just look at the professional world, advanced degrees are now the norm, not the exception. And so we look at ourselves as a part of that model and play our role in preparing students for that next step. And I think that we can do that very well, structured the way we are.
Well, what I was going to ask you is sort of along what Nelson did. In order to achieve this 900 plus enrollment, are there other curriculums you need to add in order to attract those students?
I think there are some opportunistic areas, and there are areas that we formally gave up that I think that we're committed to bringing back. And I can give you two examples. In the sciences, we formerly had computer science and biochemistry as majors. I think it would be good for us to consider bringing those back. We're in the process of doing some hiring there that would allow us to make those additions. In general, I think that there are interdisciplinary sorts of majors that, for instance, neuroscience is another science example. It's kind of a cross between psychology and biology. And there are areas where we can add more offerings without bulking up new departments because they cross over between things that already exist in our programmatic structure. So yes, we'll be definitely looking at that. We'll be looking at things like business, for example, that could probably use some revitalization. No offense to the faculty, but it's been pretty static for a long, long time, and so we probably need to have a strategic conversation around where that's going into the future.
So in order to get above 900, where would be like the room for growth? Would we need new housing and more housing and parking?
A couple of things there. One, yes, I mean, we would plan as far as the growth, building housing along the way. And we have identified some areas, not to be specific, where we could put up new housing, probably taking some very old housing offline in the process and just effectively removing it. That would allow us more options as far as an additional academic building, which we would ultimately need. Parking is something that we need to look at, campus-wide. I know that it's an issue. I also know that from working at places like Rice, parking was a half mile away. There was a single space on campus for students. So there has to be a give and take as to how convenient it can be. But we'll definitely need to add as we grow. And we would never think about growing beyond a certain point without adding housing ultimately without adding classroom space in the sciences laboratory space. All that's in our planning rubric based on hitting targets, and as those happen, we'll commit to making the changes and doing the things we need to do.
You talked about partnerships in the community. Could you speak to what you've done with the students and the community center? Did you guys have some kind of arrangement or something with the community center as well as for your students this year?
We've talked about it. We haven't finalized that yet. It was because we were looking at it as sort of a global thing, not just for the students, but for faculty and staff. Therefore, it's a benefit, and I needed to turn that over to the faculty and staff for the benefits discussion. So that's in the works. But certainly, that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. And ultimately, as we thought about the community center in general, you know, it's been very well received. I think that there's even a notion now that, you know, there could even be a phase 2. And I think the other discussion that I've had with the mayor and other city officials is as things like that happen, I think we want to be, and you guys want to be more involved so that, for example, it'd be great from our point of view if there was an auditorium that had a pool and a diving well that we could actually use for competition, which we don't really, that doesn't exist in the current structure. But if ever there was an expansion, I think the schools and us would be interested in having those conversations before they break ground. And not just pools, but anything. You know, it's just, for us to be building all of our own things, whether it's Lyon or Batesville or whoever else, we really should be thinking about how we can collaborate and not just throwing up things on our own.
I didn't know where that's at, but I knew you'd start to talk, and we would be interested in that too. So maybe there's something that with organizations and corporations going together, I think it happens. So
yeah,
thank you.
Would you take on the football program since you're relatively new to that?
Would I? Oh, what's my take on it? Well, I mean, it's a young program, so you have to keep your expectations in line. You know, I think that it does a lot. I mean, there's certainly the enrollment piece of that, but taking that aside, there's a lot that it can do for, you know, school spirit and bringing the community together. I mean, we're looking forward to homecoming this weekend. That's going to be a big part of it. I think that ultimately there may be some things that we want to do. For example, we just announced that we're going to be doing track and field going forward, and one of the reasons for that, in addition to just it'd be great to have track and field, is football players do better if they have a spring sport. I mean, just to be completely honest, and track and field is the normal spring sport for football players. I think that there are other things that we can do along those lines that will make football work better for us, and so we're looking at a number of different things to make the program better.
I would just be interested in, you know, we have an emerging healthcare training and research kind of capability in Batesville, and with your interest in computers, also psychology, do you see as perhaps some potential there for attracting new revenues to start down that research path?
Well, I think there's definitely a path for collaboration. I mean, I was really excited to see the residency program starting at the medical center. I think that there are ways that we can work together to use those residents as mentors to our pre-health professionals. I think that the community college is thinking the same way as the high school. And so what I see is a spectrum of us helping each other out in different areas. It's not inconceivable that we will graduate pre-health professionals who go off and either get, you know, medical or nursing degrees and come back to White River. So, you know, ultimately, the reason they started a residency program is they wanted to capture more professionals to actually stay here. We feel like we're a part of that pipeline as well. So I think there are ways on both the practice side and the research side that we can work more closely together to optimize what we get out of it individually. Did you have that?
Yes, and you mentioned the strategic plan. and the woman who is going to be leading that, I guess. And she worked with Johns Hopkins. Has she worked with small schools as well?
She's worked with a lot of small liberal arts colleges, some smaller than us. I mean, she's been in the business 25 years. She's probably facilitated 150 strategic plans. You know, I can think off the top of my head of a dozen colleges of our like and size that she's worked with. One of the things I really like about her is typically facilitators in this space are retired college presidents, to be honest, and I think they make the worst facilitators, because one thing I can tell you about college presidents, retired or not, is they like to talk and they like to tell you their opinions. And frankly, that's the last thing you want from a facilitator. You want to hear about what the committee thinks, what Lyon is based on, you know, looking at the community. So you really, it's really tough to find somebody who can keep the cats herded along the way, but not interpose their own opinions. And she's just great at that. I mean, and I've worked with her before. My job before last, I was vice president for innovation at my alma mater, Southwestern, which is just outside of Austin. It's about twice the size of Lyon as far as students, but it's a very similar kind of institution. She did our omnibus strategic plan, year-long planning process, and I thought she was excellent. So that really sold me on her.
One of the things that I've seen with some of the colleges, and you mentioned, you know, not really getting into the allied health thing, but some of the senior colleges, because of the escalating cost of continuing education or further new education, I've seen that some of the senior colleges work real closely with the community colleges to take that allied health degree that they can get in 2 years here and be able to continue it on with a 4-year degree without having to leave town. It just goes from here to here, and it cuts their costs, because what I'm seeing, and you're right, you know, upper education is becoming the norm, the expected from employers. However, just as many employers are hiring the people that come out with an RN and 2-year degree as they are a 4-year degree. And the same thing's true in radiology and lab and things of that nature. So being able to work with your community college to continue that where people could keep the cost down for the first couple of years seems to be helping. And I'm sure you guys have thought of that.
We haven't, you know, and I appreciate the allied health part of it, but just take that aside for a second, just think about college in general. We're interested in doing a number of things, frankly. I want to, you know, we're in the process of hiring a new provost. One of the big priorities for that person is to work with the community college to build an articulation agreement such that every 100 level class or above directly transfers to Lyon. So it's not a question, the registrar is not sitting there for days going through it. We know how things will transfer. You know, and you have to be committed to redoing that exercise every couple of years as courses on either side change. So I want to do that. That will allow kind of a seamless transition. The other thing that we'll likely be doing in enrollment is developing a plan for Independence County students who have cost as a major issue, a building plan where they can come and live at home and therefore defer, you know, essentially eliminate that cost and provide a route for them to consider Lyon where it might not have been a place they consider otherwise. And then also work with the high schools on dual credit, those kind of options. For us, you know, we're working through the existing structures, so we're definitely committed to doing it. But for us, it's really just a question of how do we finance it? Because, you know, unlike the community college, we don't have a, you know, public source, so we have to find those funds elsewhere. But we'll find them. It's just a matter of making it work.
You may want to touch, you know, the perception, we've talked about this in other areas and all, of the cost of attending Lyon College compared to some of the public universities and all, and just touch on how much support y'all do offer to the students and scholarships, grants, etc.
Well, one of the things, let's extract room and board, because let's assume you're going to have to live somewhere and eat somewhere above the age of 18, anywhere you are, whether you're living at home, somebody's paying for that, or you're living somewhere else. You just look at our cost of attendance from a tuition basis, where we're trying to get our tuition discount. So basically, what we're trying to do as far as net tuition would be about a 60% discount. So effectively, be looking at about $11,000 in tuition. You know, and that's before any sort of funded aid is out there. So we're really working on being very assiduous about making it affordable, but also pointing out, you know, if you choose Lyon as the option, when you come into an institution with a 12-to-1 student-faculty ratio, essentially, you know, a much even higher staff-to-student ratio, and all the facilities that we have in kind of a, you know, in this compact environment, those are premium kind of things. I mean, can you get a good education in Fayetteville? Yes. Will you get the same experience? Not likely. Even the Honors College at Arkansas, when you have 3 times the students, it's just not the same experience. So on the one hand, we're very much keen on cost control and making it affordable. But on the other hand, we also have to have the discussion that these kind of different accommodations are more expensive. And so families have to understand why the costs are the way they are, and then also understand what the differences are. That's on us to make that understanding clear, but we will constantly be trying to ameliorate the cost situation, because we know almost every family has issues when it comes to cost. And it's a variety of, you know, reasons. You know, the stagnant economy is a big part of it. There's just been, over the last 30 years, a big change in the way people have saved or not saved for college. I mean, we see a lot of families now that have never really saved at all, and that makes that conversation hard, because we can bear what we can bear, but we can only bear that much. And, you know, it's a situation where we just have to work very individually to try to make it happen.
Wasn't Lyon recognized within the last few years for its affordability by some national publications?
Oh yeah, I mean, we were recognized this year by Forbes for being having one of the lowest federal loan debts. I think we tied with Vanderbilt and Stanford or something. I mean, basically, we're very, very competitive price-wise.
If you indulge me, I just kind of wonder how many people in the room have either in their business or their family or themselves been affected by Lyon College? A show of hands. Yeah. It's important in the community, I think.
I do too. I'm glad to see it. Well, I just wanted to let you know at the end, my door is always open, and my email's always on. God knows. But if ever there's a reason that you need to reach out to me, just reach out to me directly. There's no, I mean, we're a small community. You know, there's no guardian at my office door. Felissa, you know, you can talk your way past me. Marquita, on the other hand, was impossible. But now she's over in the provost's office. Anyway, we're available. We're there for you. If there's ever anything, just reach out to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. King, we will donate a book to the local library in your honor for speaking to us today.
Oh, great.
And if you will, Leisha is going to hand you, unless you participated in our drawing today, if you didn't, you'll pick the winning ticket for us.
Oh, okay. I did not participate. So down in there deep.
Yeah,
that's it.
Is that one?
No, it's 2. Yep, it's mine.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, if you want to.
The number is 733822.
No.
Jared says, it's your turn.
I was drawing for a second.
Dr. King, if she wins, I'll never give another dime to Lyon.
At next week's meeting, Ethel Tompkins will be our speaker. She is a Hoxie school integrator. She's one of the first African-American students to integrate and go to Hoxie, and was the first graduate from that school. So be sure to be here next week, even though we're having our big World Polio Day event on Tuesday. Anything else for good of the club? Matt?
I just got the sheet back. I hate to pass the plate twice, but Friday morning, it looks like it's going to be me, David Winberry, and Mark. I really need some help Friday morning, guys.
I'll be there.
Okay. Okay. So if you can, please see me after the meeting. Let's get some more names for Friday, because that's going to be us taking the pork butts off the smoker and packaging them up. So anyway, thank you.
Anybody else? If not, we'll end as we always do with the four-way test, the things we think, say, or do. Number 1.
Is it the truth?
Number 2.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Number 3.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And number 4.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Have a great week.